Let's go ahead and go to Max Keiser as part of our live coverage. I know it's late at night over there in Albion, Britannia, but he joins us. And Max Keiser, it's election 2012, and I was flattered that when we connected to your Skype, we could hear the audio of the video in the background. We're flattered that you are following our coverage here of MaxKeiser.com. Max, there's so much going on. What is front and center right now in this selection on Max Keiser's radar? TV host, former stockbroker, inventor of the Hollywood Stock Exchange. What's your take on what's happening right now, Max Keiser?
Well, I always look at how markets are trading to give you an idea of what the big money is doing, what the smart money is doing. And the stock market and the precious metals markets have been strong all day, indicating that the Obama win will bring in more gridlock and more quantitative easing, more money printing. If there was any chance at all that Romney would win, the markets would have sold off pretty sharply over the past couple of days. But they haven't, because there's never been less than a 55 to 60% chance that Obama would win, anywhere between 60 to 90% chance that he would win. If you look at Betfair or InTrade or iPundit, these are all political markets. They've all called this for Obama. The Dow Jones, the gold market, have all basically called this for Obama. So Romney's never really been in this race as far as the markets are concerned. And since I've spent 25 years in the markets, I kind of go with how they're going, and that's the way it's been. Now, if you want to talk about the big news after the election, it's going to be a busting of the biggest bubble in the history of the past 240 years. Did you know, Alex Jones, that in America for the past 238 years, during the entire time of the existence of the United States, that the U.S. 10-year Treasury bond has never been higher at 1.6% on the yield on the 10-year
Yes,
note.
I did know that, because you have global quantitative easing, devaluation of currencies, in a race to the bottom. So people fleeing into the dollar was not a sign of strength, but actually weakness. So Max Keiser is saying that the U.S. Treasuries are overvalued. I don't think anyone denies that. You get a tiny gain, but they're overvalued. What does that mean?
Well, it's in a historic bubble. You'd have to go back to the tulip bulb bubble or other historic bubbles that are trading at these incredible overvaluations. And when this U.S. government bond bubble bursts, then that'll within now in the next 6 months. You know, I'm still sticking to my prediction of global paper apocalypse between now and the middle of April. So we're into the final 6 months. This prediction will cause more massive gridlock, more massive money printing. I'm here in the UK, where the economy is rolling over, where the government is throwing up its arms and basically throwing in the towel and giving up, where there's more problems every single day. Gold is making new highs against the British pound. It's made new highs against the euro, the Swiss franc. So as you know, I'm here to witness firsthand the collapse of the UK economy, because when the paper apocalypse comes, the nations with the most gold are going to be the ones that will survive. And the UK has we're really only about 300 tons of gold. It's one of the lowest positions of gold of any of the G20 nations. The Eurozone, by the way, has over 12,000 tons. Italy's got over 2,400 tons. The UK is only 300 tons of gold. That means that they're going to go to a gunfight with a pea shooter. They just don't have enough gold.
And by the way, it's not just the Middle Eastern countries or Venezuela. A whole bunch of countries are demanding their gold back from the U.S. and England. What does that signify? That they think things are going to collapse so bad and things are going to go to different conflicts worldwide that they won't be able to get their gold back?
Well, starting in 2009, Alex, the central banks around the world reversed a 30-year trend. They became buyers of gold. Starting in 2009. Mexico has bought 2,000% increased their gold reserves. Korea has increased their gold reserves by hundreds of percentage points. Here's how you know when the paper apocalypse is upon us, Alex. This is a very simple concept that once it happens, it will cause a seismic repercussions around the world. Central banks around the world right now, they print money to buy bonds. That's what a quantitative easing is all about. When this thing hits the fan, central banks will begin to print money to buy gold. That's the big difference. Central banks printing money to buy gold. Then you see gold trading at $5,000 an ounce overnight. That's when you see the U.S. Treasury bond get crushed by 50, 60, 70% in a week. That's what I'm talking about between now and April.
Continue breaking that analysis down, Max.
It's just a matter of the central banks and the investment banks that do business with them have done nothing over the past 5 years of this crisis except expand the level of derivatives trading. They've expanded the complications of the interbank dealing and all of the unsound practices that they've been involved with. HSBC, the biggest bank in the UK, just got caught and they're being charged with another $500 million, $500 million, for money laundering for Mexico. That brings a £1.6 billion liability to HSBC. The LIBOR scandal, the biggest scandal in banking history. It affects $300 trillion in securities. The lawsuits are piling up like tobacco and asbestos combined. The LIBOR scandal is going to completely decapitalize these banks. The Basel Committee in Switzerland is saying the banks must increase their working capital by billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, at the same time that they're trying to pay down debt. So those two things are completely opposed to each other. It doesn't add up except to a massive crash, which we're heading into. And this election in the U.S. doesn't matter. You could put Mickey Mouse in the White House. It won't stop this paper apocalypse from hitting in the next 6 months. It just doesn't matter who you put in the White House. The freight train is at full speed. You can't stop it.
Our guest is Max Keiser, and we've done quite a bit tonight. He's been with us another 20 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer. I would like to open the phones up here to our phone system for people that want to report any voting anomalies, and we'll do that here in a few minutes. And we also have reporters who are going to be on the ground in Austin, and our own David Knight and Jakari Jackson are going to be popping in with the latest updates. But when I saw the bookies over the weekend in Ireland, in England, and even in Vegas by Monday, already paying out on Obama, when I'm looking at the Electoral College and I'm looking at the popular vote, Romney's winning popular. He's neck and neck in the Electoral College. Again, I mean, quite frankly, either way, I like the fact that Romney claims he's pro-gun and stuff, but I know that's all a bunch of talk. So I'm not a big enough schmuck or sucker or, a rube or whatever word you use, to sit here and fantasize about this. But, I mean, it's scary Obama calls war peace. I mean, it's scary he gets peace prizes. It's scary he says he's going to ban my handguns. It's scary, a lot of stuff. So I'm like, am I wrong not getting in this? Am I wrong? But then, I pull back. But, it's easy to go in there and make bets that Obama's going to win to skew it if they're going to spend $6 billion on this election one way or the other, as the New York Times reported 2 days ago. So, I mean, I don't think we can call this race yet. But, Gerald Celente, who I respect, he's been calling Obama. You've been calling Obama, who I respect, for months. So, I mean, more and more, I guess it's 4 more years of Obama. We're going to find out. I mean, nobody knows yet. It's neck and neck right now, but I mean, it's neck and neck like in a rigged casino. It's kind of like putting a carrot in front of a donkey to make him plow more. I mean, it's a riddle inside a smokescreen, inside a hall of mirrors, that we're getting our fortune told on the side of the highway via some gypsy cart. So who knows what even reality is in this kingdom of lies. But you're saying, explain as a former, now retired top stockbroker, inventor of virtual trading, I mean, describe in the technicals, Max Keiser, why the markets did this and why you're saying the markets, commodities, gold, silver, and other things going up, why that signifies a big win for the man who brought us the Obama phone.
You're right in that bookies in Europe are paying out on an Obama win already. They started doing that yesterday. That's how certain they are of an Obama win, that they're paying out on those bets. I believe it was Paddy Power or one of the other bookies.
That was Paddy Power and a bunch of others. Yeah, that was.
Okay, so they're already paying out on this bet because the commodities markets, the gold market and the stock market to a large degree, they want more of the same. They want more quantitative easing. Romney, the way he talks now, of course, when he gets into the White House, whether he would fulfill this promise or not, that's another story. But the way he was talking was that he would try to get America's fiscal house in order, that he would try to support the dollar, and that he would stop wasting money overseas. But, that would be good for the dollar, and that would be potentially a negative for gold. But nobody in the gold market ever believed him. Goldman Sachs doesn't believe him. Nobody believes him because they kept bidding up the price of stocks and gold throughout this entire period, and none more so than today. You saw a massive rally in gold today, up $33 at one point, because it's clear that Obama is going to create more gridlock, and there's going to be massive money printing, and there's going to be more of the same in this massive banking crisis, which is yet to show its final comeuppance.
Because the system knows what Obama and his crew is going to do, so this signifies, this means the inflationary move. It's not that Romney would even keep his promises, it's just they know the quantifiable power structure of Obama, and they're saying, okay, that means commodities are going to go up.
Absolutely. And the markets are, discounting mechanisms. We can say that. They are not necessarily prediction mechanisms, but the smart money, the big money, will definitely move prices. And as they move that money around and prices reflect where that money is going, you can see, for example, going back to the George Bush win, when he won the election, 6 months before George Bush won the first term, the tobacco stocks and the nuclear energy stocks all surged to new 52-week highs because they knew that that's where this country was going, and they knew that massive amounts of money was going to go to tobacco, go to energy, go to defense, and those stocks hitting new all-time highs. And so the market was telling you which way this thing was going. Here you see the same thing with the gold and precious metals. It's a fait accompli that this banking crisis will precipitate massive amounts of money printing.
Okay, how did they know Obama was going to win when the wide spectrum of polls showed neck and neck? Does that lean towards the fix being in?
No, the best poll is from Nate Silver, who looks purely at the statistics. And Nate Silver, forget the name of his website, but he's been keeping Obama ahead as the Electoral College.
Yeah, he's now saying 92% chance, and that's who the New York Times uses.
So that's always been between 60 and 90%, and that's a poll. That's a guy who's completely independent.
What do you expect Obama to do? Because one thing I don't like about Obama, and maybe it's just the power structure, because I know they're frontmen, but they are different CEOs of Slavery Incorporated. I mean, TSA was not trying to grab my huevos before Obama got in, but I mean, maybe that was just a coincidence. But I mean, if that trend continues, will there be full proctology exams? The TSA openly going after our families.
As far as if you compare Obama in the context of civil rights, he's worse than Bush. I mean, that will give you an idea of how bad this guy is. You had the Obama deception film 4 years ago, and that was a very prescient film, and it was a very accurate film. Obama is a disaster. He's got to be one of the worst presidents ever, but it doesn't mean he's not going to win tonight.
Because the establishment's happy with what he's doing.
The establishment is making billions and billions of dollars on the back of Obama. Look, the Wall Street's going to pay itself another $140 billion in bonuses this year. I'm sure it'll be a record year in bonuses, like it's been for every year of Obama's administration, give or take. They've always made out like bandits. So why would you vote against that?
Wow. Max, I'm here asking a lot of the questions. Max Keiser of the Keiser Report on RT, also BBC, you name it. I mean, he's got shows in England. He's got shows worldwide. Other points that I'm not bringing up that you think are important for the audience?
I think this is a complete waste of everyone's time. If in the context of looking ahead to what's going to be the reality starting tomorrow and the next day, which is that the banks and the economies are crumbling rapidly, and everything we've been saying is only picking up speed. And the people need to be aware of that and position themselves and protect themselves and do the things we've been saying.
Sure. I mean, people ask me this all the time. They say, Alex, if you say at the presidential level elections are a farce at this point, and it's a left-right paradigm and the same globalists control both sides, which they write books about bragging. It's not my opinion. It's not like I'm saying this. People say, oh, how'd you know this? Well, they said it. I mean, they think we're so dumb they operate out in the open. And I guess in a way we are dumb because most people don't care to even read a newspaper. I saw a national study 2 weeks ago that 23% read newspapers, period. I mean, at any time. Others don't even touch them. And that's a whole other level of propaganda, even if you read the newspaper. But the general public is just totally unaware of what's going on. People say then, why are you covering the election if it's a farce? Well, I'm honest about that. I can sit there and hang out my shingle and say, we're covering the election and get everybody in the matrix to tune in, and not just the choir. And then I can say, by the way, the whole thing's a fraud and show how it's all controlled. I mean, you know, it's really that simple. People are like, well, why'd you do an Obama deception if both sides are controlled? Well, the Obama deception shows that. We just used the cult of Obama when he was, 90% approval rating, God incarnate, to show people the fraud he would be, which has now been proven. It's just that here's my problem, Max. Because I am pro-life, because I am pro-Second Amendment and pro-sovereignty. I know the Republicans are against all that as well, but they act like they're for it. I have the Democrats and Media Matters and all these groups attacking me and doing things and doing things behind the scenes. So all I know is they've put me in the Republican gang, even if I'm not part of that gang. I'm part of the freedom gang. I want freedom. I don't like corruption. I don't think it's cute to be an insider. I want to make it on my own, and I want to empower others. So what do I do? Because the word I've gotten is that the Justice Department and the rest of those fast and furious criminals are going to really try to cinch things up, which is what the power structure wants. It's not just because they're Democrats. I've just found that the Democrats are a very authoritarian crew at the top.
Well, as bad as it is in the States for the reasons and everything you've just described, it's actually in some ways a lot worse in a country like Ireland. Now, I was listening to Gerald Celente. He's in Ireland. I just came back from a week in Ireland. And in Ireland, the situation is worse. They only have one broadcaster, RTE. It's like the state-sponsored, TV-licensed, sponsored broadcaster. And all they do all day is report on farm conditions and the weather. Even though that you've got guys like Noonan, who was mentioned earlier, or you've got banking guys like Sean Fitzpatrick and others who have stolen billions and hundreds of billions of euros from the country. The media doesn't even mention that in any context and at any time. It's a complete blank slate. It's not even mentioned. So the people have been abandoned by the media. They've been abandoned by the banks. The Catholic Church has abandoned them. There's a huge scandal in Ireland where the Irish government has closed down their embassy at the Vatican as part of a huge scandal. So they've lost their church. They've lost their banks, they've lost their media. They've been completely abandoned. These people are just wandering around from county to county, not knowing what to do. Now, in America, still, you've got outlets like yourself. You've got other people that at least have some alternative voice. But in some of these other countries, like Ireland and down in Greece, it's just really unbelievable.
Well, what about this point? Did you know out of 170 plus countries that Alexa.com, the web rating system, guess where this show is normally number one? It's actually number two right now because the election, we're getting even more visitors from the U.S. We are consistently for a decade, my biggest audience per capita is Ireland. So they understand that they've got to go outside to get news and information.
Well, I think I've said on your show many times that the what I call the global insurrection against banker occupation, the front line is in Athens and Dublin. And I believe that we should have, and I'm there myself, but there should be permanent reporters from your organization and others in Dublin, in Athens, who are reporting on the global insurrection so that this is the front
I agree,
line.
folks. We don't have the capital, but we can vet good reporters in Athens and in Dublin and not just have Max on when he's there. We need to get correspondents there who can talk about what it's like to really be under the globalists because they're 2 or 3 years ahead of us.
Right. It would help the people there, give them real assistance. It would also help people in America see what the future is going to look like because the U.S., as we've said before, is insulated to some degree because they have the U.S. dollar, which is the world reserve currency, which means that even in today's environment, the price of food and energy on a relative basis are a lot cheaper than other places of the world. So America has a good, quote unquote, compared to Greece, obviously.
We're exporting our inflation.
All kinds of nasty bits are going back and forth and benefits that come with having the world reserve currency. But in 2 or 3 years' time, the benefit of having that currency will collapse as all of the paper money collapses.
I saw a number that the per capita government and private debt in the U.S. is the highest in the world of any industrialized country and was something like 30%. It's in my stack, worse than Greece.
And what do they call that? They call that the fiscal cliff, right? After the election, there's going to be a discussion about what about this fiscal cliff. So this is what Ireland had to deal with 3 years ago when the government, on behalf of the people, assumed 100% of one bank's liabilities, Anglo-Irish, and took the country from having no deficit, no structural deficit, no problem paying any of the welfare programs, to being hundreds of billions or 2 or 3 times their GDP in debt. That happened in 1 week.
Max, let me raise that for people because they do this Svengali move, this mind control move, where 4.5 years ago, October 2008, it was admitted that 90+% of this debt we were signing on to was derivatives fraud, not the people's debt. Same thing in Iceland, same thing that you reported on live from, same thing in Ireland, same thing in Greece, same thing, it's 80-something% is not their debt in Spain, Portugal. But then by now, the media is like, you're lazy and dumb. You need to work 7 days a week. We're taking your pension fund, you scum. You're the reason we're in debt. And I'm like, excuse me, they admit right here this isn't the Irish people's debt. This isn't the Icelanders' debt. This isn't the Greeks' debt. This isn't the Spanish debt. I mean, talk about perishing for lack of knowledge. Their criminal governments sign them on to the bankers, give their tax money to the bankers to bail them out. The bankers come back and say, well, now because you gave us all this money, you're in debt to us on that money, and we're going to shut everything down to increase your taxes to pay us more. I mean, I'm like, hey, how about your ass gets thrown in prison? How's that sound?
Well, the debt that they're paying to this bank, Anglo-Irish, is by definition unsecured debt, which means that if there's inability of the debtor to pay, then the creditor has to accept their losses. It's not even a secured debt. It's an unsecured debt. And they're still going to be paying off billions of euros on an unsecured debt.
Sure. How do they sign me up for banks derivatives crap too big to fail and then turn around and tell me I'm lazy and need to pay these bastard banks more money?
Okay, so that's Ireland is basically their goose is cooked. Now let's look at the UK for a second. What is the debt to GDP ratio in the UK? Well, if you add up the national debt, the personal debt, and the debt on the bank's balance sheet, the UK, Britain, has a debt to GDP ratio of over 900%, which is incredibly high. It's about where Iceland was before Iceland blew up. And there's no way that Britain can pay off this debt. That's why the British pound and the British economy is Iceland on steroids. They're just walking into a machete. That's why I'm here. I'm going to cover this live because this is going to be the most spectacular flameout we've seen in 50 years or more. The U.S. is not much better. I mean, it's got huge problems, but they have the military. They've got the Pentagon. They've got the ability to launch wars.
Got some nuclear weapons and a bunch of high-tech propaganda, but let's expand on that. I know I stated it, but I want you in your expert terms. to explain how, because I've seen the numbers even in the news, on average 90% or so of the debt is the banksters. How do they transmute it like alchemy onto our debt and then lecture us about how great they are all day and how great it is to be run by their unelected technocrats?
Well, you had a case study in this back in 2008. Remember, Hank Paulson went in front of Congress during the crisis, and he said, you need to give us $750 billion to save your the banking system. That means you need to guarantee $750 billion to bail out Goldman Sachs and Wall Street. And Congress said, wait a minute, that sounds preposterous. We're not going to do it. Well, what did they do? The next day, Hank Paulson hit the sell button, and with program trading and algorithmic trading and high-frequency trading, they crashed the market in the way that I've described on your show many times. The market crashed, and then Congress said, oh, wait a minute, we've changed our mind. Here's your $750 billion. Same thing in Europe. Every time one of these countries like Greece wants to have more money printing going out, another big bailout of the banks, they crash the market. When Ireland needs more money, they crash the market. When anytime more money is needed to be printed, they crash the market. And that market crash is not due to market conditions. It's a market crash that is orchestrated by market participants to affect a political outcome.
Yeah, so they're holding us hostage, and as you point out, you knew people that kept trading in the towers at places you worked, even though they knew it was probably going to kill them, who died to make extra money. So these banksters can't stop doing this. So where does it lead us if they hold us hostage into oblivion?
Well, I don't think there is any way out of it, because there's nothing at this point anyone can do to stop the inertia, the momentum. And so you have to look after this global crash and decide where you want to be after the crash. For me, I want to be with as much gold and silver as possible. But there's got to be no way that anyone or any organization or any government or any group of governments is going to be able to come together and stop this from happening.
Yeah, there's no way we're not going into increased inflation. They can manipulate it for a while. They can play games with paper. That's why I bought gold at $200 and something an ounce, never sold it. That's why I bought silver at $5.
Let me go back and review a fundamental point here. The central banks, which are the repositories of the biggest hoards of cash and credit in the world, starting in 2009, they stopped being sellers of gold and they started being buyers of gold because they don't trust each other. And when you lose the confidence, you lose everything that keeps a fiat money afloat. The trend for central banks, including China, which is the world's biggest gold miner, they're the biggest gold buyer. A couple of things are going to happen that are going to kick this off. China's going to announce probably at the end, beginning of next year, that as of the end of this year, their reserves, gold reserves, have gone from 1,000 tons to 2 or 2,500 tons of gold. That will freak out every central banker in the world, who will then scramble to buy gold. And then here's the kicker. They will engage in quantitative easing, that is to print money, not to buy bonds, but to buy gold. That's when this thing blows up. That's when bonds crash. That's when paper money goes hyperinflationary, worthless. That's when gold kicks off to higher levels.
So that's the trigger. That's the trigger for the race to the exits.
Yes.
Okay, let me just give people some breaking news here. Romney takes early electoral vote lead with Ohio and Virginia too close to call. Mitt Romney has carried West Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky. Fox News projects. That means Karl Rove projects. New Jersey email voting suffers major glitches. Deadline extended to Friday. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. They are now extending the election, though the media may just call it. I mean, we are entering hyper bizarro. That is NBC News. Bloomberg suggests partial evacuation ahead of new storm. That's Wall Street Journal. The big nor'easter coming in. Well, this is really biblical. The storm, another storm. Oh, I mean, get ready for some crazy, crazy times. Taking photos of your ballot is illegal in Illinois. You're not supposed to show the electronic fraud. Everybody's pointing out. And we've got gold, oil surge, other commodities post gains as ballots cast in major presidential election. Max Keiser is our guest. Hey, you want to talk to Max Keiser? We only got him about 15 more minutes out of David Knight in a report. And then we're going to have Wayne Madsen joining us, as well as Paul Craig Roberts, Lew Rockwell, and many others. Ron Paul is on Friday. Jesse Ventura tomorrow during the main radio show. And again, I want to thank all our guests and the crew and all of you, the viewers out there. But here's the toll-free number to join us, 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. Did you see election fraud, or do you have a quick comment on what's happening? This is too early to tell. It's all a bunch of fraud anyway. So, they're telling us it's like the roulette wheel in Vegas. I mean, how do you know it's not staged? Because Don Corleone told you it wasn't. How do you know that's your daddy? Because your mama told you so. How do you know aspartame's good for you? Because Monsanto told you so. Enjoy that brain tumor. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. 877-789-2539. MaxKeiser.com is the website of our guest. And Max, what time is it over there in Britannia? What is it, like midnight, 1 in the morning?
It's time for everyone listening to your show to start following me on Twitter.
I agree. Give us your Twitter.
It's Max Keiser is my Twitter handle. It's Twitter.
Listen, I don't know how Twitter works.
/ Max Keiser, Keiser. You must follow me on Twitter. That is part of the salvation.
Listen, all I know is I didn't get onto Twitter and Facebook till a lot later. And,
you've got 100,000 followers or more. I've only got like 37,000. I want to be, if I get over Alex Jones and the number of followers in the next week, I will give away 20 silver ounces to whoever gets me over that number.
Anyways, listen, I hope you get 50 million followers. My whole point is that I'm sitting here, and we need everybody to go to Real Alex Jones on Twitter as well and sign up for that, because we're getting censored on Facebook and on YouTube, not on Twitter yet. I need something where I don't have to, send out emails to everybody and that gets blocked by spam filters. I need people to be on that. So when I'm out there at live reports or need to get something out, twitter.com/Real Alex Jones. Anytime you get to some game late, it's not good. I don't know how I can put an article on InfoWars, in any article, and it gets like 100,000 readers. And then I can't get over 114,000, I guess 115,000 followers. Everybody needs to be on there so that I can lustfully, because it's not really lust, but it's the clearest word I've got. I really want to get info into people's hands. So, yes, follow Max Keiser.
I think the word you're looking for is actively.
Actively. Absolutely, sir.
Let me just tell you something which you don't really understand this. I have to break it down for you. People in Ireland, as I explained it to you, they are in a media vacuum. Alex Jones, wherever you go in Ireland, you can go to a farming town with only 20 people, and they know Alex Jones. People listen to you. And you see the numbers on Alexa. That's not a freak accident. You are huge in Ireland. You are huge in the UK. You are huge in the English-speaking world. And there's got to be a way to leverage that as far as fighting back against the banksters. You're thinking in the bubble of America, and America is the last country to go under because of the reserve dollar. You can build out that army of supporters in these other countries, and it'll give you more firepower to go against the banksters. In my opinion, that's just my opinion.
Max, all I want to do is defeat the globalists. Tell me how.
Well, in Ireland, it sounds like you're setting yourself up to have a lot more coverage with reporters in different countries and things, and that sounds fantastic. If you had permanently somebody in Dublin and somebody in Athens and somebody in a couple of other key countries, then what becomes clear is that this global banking crisis, this global insurrection against bankster, is something everyone shares around the world. Canada, Australia. Certainly in the English-speaking world is the obvious connecting of all these countries. But, all it takes is a couple of reporters from these places to report how, like HSBC or the LIBOR scandal is global, the money laundering scandal from HSBC with Mexico now is huge, $100 billion. So this is all connected. So they all can go through the headquarters, and they're in Austin. You're the global nexus of all this, and you already are. I'm just saying that, hey, there's people out there in Ireland who already are looking to you to get their news. So, maybe bring out a couple of reporters as you've done in the U.S. Maybe bring a couple on from these other countries to give it that global footprint.
No, I agree, but I'm just a regular guy trying to keep basic operations here and build our central network. But I agree. I mean, I would just say to
You got
everybody,
this guy Watson, right? Watson is in the UK. He's got the UK covered. You need a Watson-type guy in Dublin and one in Athens. That's my final
I agree.
suggestion.
We've had some of the groups on from there. They're great people. No, but I agree with you. This we're all under the same tyranny. I want to go to some calls here in the last 10 minutes with Max Keiser. Then we're going to go to an update with David Knight and some of our reporters on the ground. Let's go to Labulus in Florida. You're on the air.
Hey, Alex, it's Labeless. You know, I reported today on my show, I saw some really underhanded stuff at my polling place. You've got the poll workers wearing Obama campaign T-shirts, coffee mugs, and, you know, I go up to get my ballot, and they want my photo ID and proof of residence and everything else. But there's several black people that come up behind me, and they don't ask them for any of that.
We're seeing reports of retail fraud everywhere.
You know, they've got the markers outside the polling place, you know, showing here in Florida you can't have any campaign material within 100 feet of the polling place. And, you know, that you walk in my precinct anyway, and, you know, here's all this Obama stuff.
Tell me your precinct, because that would be national news. Poll workers in Obama outfits.
It's District 14.
District 14 where?
In Hillsborough County.
In Hillsborough County, Florida, there are people running things wearing Obama outfits. It was in the Houston Chronicle that the NAACP is running the polls there. And it is also in the news that they have the new Black Panther Party in Philadelphia there with baseball bats like last time. Pretty amazing. I tell you, man, this country's in a lot of trouble. But hey,
I've also seen other reports through, you know, in other cities. I think Chicago was one where one of the judges there was wearing his Obama ball cap.
Unbelievable. Well, listen, all I can say is I would videotape something like that by hook or by crook, because that needs to be exposed. And I'm not saying you're lying. It's just unbelievable that this is all going on. Thank you for the call, Labeless. Max Keiser, any comments on what he just said?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as far as voting fraud goes in the United States, why would anyone be surprised that the basic tenet of democracy, voting, is totally corrupt? Look at the other metrics of how America is doing. As on the competitiveness table, America has just crashed down. It's not even in the top 10. It's not in the top 15. It's number 17 in terms of competitiveness in the world. On the human rights front, they passed NDAA, total abolishment of human rights. How are they doing on the Gini coefficient, which is a measure of the wealth gap between the richest and the poorest? Well, according to this number, the U.S. is doing quite poorly as well, crashing down that table. How about press freedom? Well, according to Reporters Without Borders, press freedom in America is crashing. So if all the basic measures of a democracy and of a thriving society are all crashing, why would we expect the polling institution to be any less corrupt and any less pathetic? Of course it's going to be equally pathetic. Every institution in the country is crashing.
And everything's gang mentality. You know, as long as your gang's winning. Let's talk to Jerry in New York. You're on the air with Max Keiser.
Yeah, hey, how are you?
Hey, buddy. Thank you for joining us during special puppet election coverage.
Yeah, I've been listening to you for years. You're the best. And Max Keiser, he kind of has the same perspective as Gerald Celente. He says there will be a bubble. What's your take on the relationship between Iran, America, and Israel? And what do you think? When do you think precisely will it turn into effect after the election? Because there's a hold on by Benjamin Netanyahu to attempt to do something.
Yeah, that's right. The deal was made that they would strike Iran after the election. We were also told by a lot of our sources they would stage a fake enrichment hold announcement. That did happen, Max Keiser.
Well, the countries with the independent oil supplies are vulnerable. We saw it in Iraq. We see it in Iran. And that's when you have the global oil business dominated by Exxon and others, these countries are vulnerable. And so if, in fact, they can plausibly get in there. Remember, when they went into Iraq, it was going to cost something like $20 or $30 billion, and the invasion would pay for itself from the oil revenues from those oil fields. Well, a million innocent lives later and $2 trillion later, they're finally now starting maybe to get something back. But of course, a lot of that's now going to foreign competitors and not even to
because
US
they're globalist. I mean, I talked to so many good old boys who said, Alex, we need the oil. Shut up. And I'm like, idiot. If they'll kill 1 million Iraqis to get this, you're not going to get the oil, Jack. And I went further. I said, they were mad at Saddam in 1990 because he was overpumping to pay off his debts, driving down prices. OPEC was mad. The bankers will make more money restricting oil. You do get artificial scarcity, and you'd hear, crickets chirping in the background. People just don't get it. They don't get that Obama can make more money shutting down coal power plants not owned by General Electric so they can double charge people. There's more than one way to take over. And people just don't get this new economy of total piracy.
Right. Well, getting back to the banking end of this, of course, you have the Saddam Hussein was going to price the oil in euros and not dollars. So that freaked people out. Iran wants to price their energy resources in euros. That precipitated, and endangered and inflamed the conflict. And going back, you haven't mentioned Libya at all, but Libya was a very interesting country in that they had a very, very large gold supply, bigger than Greece, bigger than a lot of countries. And Gaddafi was talking about launching a gold-backed currency for Africa, which it makes a lot of sense for the reasons we've talked about why any country should back their currency by gold. Here, he was actually doing it. And he brought in consultants, including the likes of Tony Blair, from former Prime Minister of Britain, who, within 6 months of leaving Downing Street and being a consultant for J.P. Morgan, getting his $3 million a year as a consultant for J.P. Morgan, Gaddafi, found himself at the end of a pipe, dead. So they'll give you an idea of who the bigger threat is in the world today, Muammar Gaddafi or Tony Blair. I would posit that Tony Blair is the greater evil in that equation.
Sure, it comes down to just absolute criminal despotism. And Libya had invested its money with the globalists. They just killed Gaddafi, took the money, put al-Qaeda in, and now they said they've got to invade Libya because al-Qaeda's there. Hillary today was in the news. I have the article here in the stack. Saying we've got to invade Syria because they're with al-Qaeda. Doesn't matter if the West publicly put al-Qaeda in. It is unbelievable. Kaylin in North Carolina, you're on the air with Max Keiser. Go ahead.
How you doing, Alex?
Good.
I just have I have really two questions. One, I'm looking at this website that's showing the presidential write-in rules. It's from 2008, but I'm looking at some of these rules and it's kind of scary. Because the way they've got them written, it seems, because, with Ron Paul not getting the Republican nominee after the RNC screwed him over, it seems that the way these rules are written, it seems that they're not even allowing write-ins to even count at all.
Yeah, no, they don't. If it's not on the ballot, it's not on the ballot. And everything they're doing is to keep third parties or any other voice out of things. Any comments on that, Max Keiser?
I didn't vote this year. I'm not going to be suckered into taking this thing seriously. Don't vote. Don't vote at all. It's a joke. America it's been euthanized by big money, big banks. So it's like, I don't want to mention the name of the poor woman, but there was a case in America a few years ago where this poor woman was in a vegetable state for years, and it became a huge story. But this is America. America is a vegetable. They're keeping it alive with artificial money printing. But by every medical definition, it's dead. So why am I going to waste time voting for a dead duck? It's a complete waste. It's gone. So just let the rest of these other banks collapse, and let's see what we have on the other end of this collapse, and what we can salvage at the other end of this global collapse. But there's nothing, absolutely nothing.
Well, that's what Ron Paul says. You know, things are going to collapse. We need to be pointing out who did it, so the people that did it can't pose as saviors once everything collapses. Well, you know, Ron Paul, as we've said many times, he is a student of all of this, historically speaking, and the banks and the central banks, and he speaks wise words, you know. But, of course, they wouldn't let him debate, would they? They wouldn't let him get on the ballot, would they? Because, my God, what if Ron Paul was actually president of the United States? You'd have, like, a sound dollar. You'd have competitiveness. You'd have common sense. But all of that is not profitable. If you're a bankster, you don't want any of that, because you want to be able to continue to roll over bad debts, collect fees, and start wars. Max Keiser, thank you so much for spending time with us. Obviously, we'll get updates from you very soon as all of this unfolds. We'll